When we reach in front the gate, we know it was a mistake. The man wife came out cussing him shinity. He wife quarreling, we feeling bad.
Oh yo yo, yeah yeah yeah.
He had to entertain we in the yard.
Oh yo yo, yeah yeah yeah.
The man in a shame is he tell we come.
Oh yo yo, yeah yeah yeah.
He bring out 2 cokes and a nip of rum.
Oh yo yo, yeah yeah yeah.
It's Christmas, Merry Christmas. It's Christmas, Merry Christmas. The parranda start on Christmas Day.
Oh yo yo, yeah yeah yeah.
And we don't stop until Ash Wednesday.
Oh yo yo, yeah yeah yeah.
So bring out the songs, bring out the bailout.
Oh yo yo, yeah yeah yeah.
Bring out the dashing and the bacalao.
Oh yo yo, yeah yeah yeah.
We drinking sorry ginger beer whiskey.
Oh yo yo, yeah yeah yeah.
Anything you bring is alright with we.
Oh yo yo, yeah yeah yeah.
Oh yo yo yeah yeah yeah.
Oh yo yo, yeah yeah yeah.
Oh yeah 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 yeah.
Oh yo yo, yeah yeah yeah.
We eating black egg after grape salt too.
Oh yo yo, yeah yeah yeah.
Bring out something salt before the next tune.
Oh yo yo, yeah yeah yeah.
We drinking punchin homemade wine and vat.
Oh yo yo, yeah yeah yeah.
But if you bring babash, we drinking that.
Oh yo yo, yeah yeah yeah.
It's Christmas,
Oh yo yo, yeah yeah yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Oh yo yo, yeah yeah yeah.
It's Christmas,
Merry Christmas. It's Christmas. Merry Christmas. Oh yo yo, yeah yeah yeah.
anything you bring is alright with me.
Oh yo yo, yeah yeah yeah.
Neighbor, neighbor, open the door, neighbor. It's Christmas morning. You should be waking. Put the drinks on the table. I hope you buy it. Me and the boys come to give you a parang. We ain't even till the liquor done. Oh yo yo, yeah yeah yeah. Come on fellas, let me take a next one.
Oh yo yo, yeah yeah yeah.
We have about 10 months to clean.
Oh yo yo, yeah yeah yeah.
We drinking from pain to kerosene.
Oh yo yo, yeah yeah yeah.
It's Christmas, Merry Christmas. It's Christmas, Merry Christmas. Hey. Last year we went by Valley Ram. He placed Matt and Heidi Ham. Bring 1 bottle of babash. The thing finished with 1 lash. Had to leave the man house quick. He say his wife was feeling sick. That same night she was liming in the quizzy. Well, if he think that he gets away.
Oh yo yo, yeah yeah yeah.
We go in by he and spend the whole day.
Oh yo yo, yeah yeah yeah.
We eating and drink everything he bring.
Oh yo yo, yeah yeah yeah.
When we leave there, he mustn't have a thing.
Oh yo yo, yeah yeah yeah.
It's Christmas, Merry Christmas. It's Christmas, so brightly shining. It is the night of our dear Savior's birth. Long lay the world in sin and error pining, till he appeared and the soul felt his worth. A trail of hope, the weary world rejoices, for yonder break a new and glorious morn. Fall on your knees. Oh yeah, the angels' voices. Oh night divine. Oh night
Trying to prevent
when
the young of the African population in the urban areas from going astray, going so far astray that their behavior could threaten the nation. That project required that the government of Trinidad and Tobago focus on the problems of the urban youth in Trinidad and Tobago, which were largely of African families. And as I stood up for that project, I was accused of racism because the project was focusing on the problem, and the problem was that Trinidad and Tobago African problem. It wasn't happening in the Chinese community or the Indian community or the Arab community. It was a problem in the African community where the African youth, by the tens of thousands, were going astray and choosing violence and criminality as a way of life. And what is worse, that was coming right out of the breakdown of the families of the African population. And the time has come where this Emancipation Day ought not just to be a day for frivolity and wearing nice African clothes and walking in the street. The time has come for the Afro-Trinidadian population to use Emancipation Day, to focus and reflect and have serious conversations about where we are in a nation where we are underperforming. In a nation where we are underperforming. In a nation where we are underperforming. Sounds bad. These are the facts. Look at the level of violence which is commonplace in Trinidad and Tobago today. Look at the level of violence which is commonplace in Trinidad and Tobago today. Who is affected? Who is carrying it out? Who is defending it? Who is being ignored? Who is being ignored? Who is being ignored? I ask you, let 2019 be that year when we take a commitment, make a commitment that Trinidad and Tobago, its African population, will focus on being the best that we can be in a nation that we can all be proud of. Ladies and gentlemen, this emancipation celebration that we started in Trinidad and Tobago very many years ago, I distinctly recall, I think it was in 2003 or 2004 thereabouts, there was a big event in our parliament because there was a project that was started. It was a pilot project to focus on trying to prevent the young of the African population in the urban areas from going astray and going so far astray that their behavior could threaten the nation. That project required that the government of Trinidad and Tobago focus on the problems of the urban youth in Trinidad and Tobago, which were largely of African families. And as I stood up for that project, I was accused of racism because the project was focusing on the problem, and the problem was that Trinidad and Tobago African problem. It wasn't happening in the Chinese community or the Indian community or the Arab community. It was a problem in the African community where the African youth, by the tens of thousands, were going astray and choosing violence and criminality as a way of life. And what is worse, that was coming right out of the breakdown of the families of the African population. And the time has come where this Emancipation Day ought not just to be a day for frivolity and wearing nice African clothes and walking in the street. The time has come for the Afro-Trinidadian population to use Emancipation Day, to focus and reflect and have serious conversations about where we are in a nation where we are underperforming. In a nation where we are underperforming. In a nation where we are underperforming. Sounds bad. These are the facts. Look at the level of violence which is commonplace in Trinidad and Tobago today. Look at the level of violence which is commonplace in Trinidad and Tobago today. Who is affected? Who is carrying it out? Who is defending it? Who is being ignored? Who is being ignored? Who is being ignored? I ask you, let 2019 be that year when we take a commitment, make a commitment that Trinidad and Tobago, its African population, will focus on being the best that we can be in a nation that we can all be proud of. Because Trinidad and Tobago is easily the most attractive, the most beautiful, the nation with the most potential of all the world's people. But let us not for 1 minute believe that this is not a problem for all the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Let us not contribute to our own situation by not doing the best we can in nation building, in family building, in community building in Trinidad and Tobago.
I've said before, I repeat.
A pleasant good night to all and sundry. Yes, I thought it was important to start there because if you are from space, if you're from another planet, you will be absorbed, you will be overwhelmed, you will be impressed by the, of course, flowery language, the hyperboles, the grandiloquence, and the apparent sincerity of the orator. I'm talking about Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. You wouldn't believe that was in, at the same time, 2019. And then, of course, he spoke of a situation as well where in 2004, he headed, of course, a special, according to him, and being called in the process a racist, but without details and without evaluation and without data and without, of course, telling us what has been accomplished. He then talked about the launching of a program specifically directed at the African community, the African youth. And then, of course, he recalled, built into his discussion is the activities of those young people, over 100 of them, following Abu Bakr in the 1990 attempted coup. Don't forget that. And therefore, he was right on target in terms of his evaluation and the need for special attention to be paid to that grouping of individuals. Of course, he nestled it in also in the experiences of slavery, and of course he speculated, or he indicated, he surmised that it might have been as a consequence of centuries of slavery and the dismantling of the family structure that caused Trinidad youths, African youths, to be so, what I consider to be antisocial and engage in criminal activities. Of course, we have to weigh that against his own track record in opposition. Because now he is in government, he is the prime minister, and here it is making the excuse. And it cannot be that this man could be taken seriously. As I said, you could only take him serious if you are unaware of the circumstances, the chronology, and the historic antecedent to what he is saying there on Emancipation Day 1986, not 1984, not 1985, you know. I talk about Emancipation Day 2019, the year when the first escalation and the first record of murders for the Rowley administration took place. Yes, Gary Griffith was there, but I've always said, once the PNM is in government, it doesn't matter how fervent, how strategic, how industrious, how ambitious the Commissioner of Police is. The fact that the PNM is in government, and because of its association with evil and, of course, mismanagement and blatant corruption in our faces, and they have this proclivity to, of course, attract murders after murders. Let's go straight to the lines. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor. Welcome to the corridor. Pleasant good night. A pleasant good night. All right, we lost that one. Sorry about that, caller. I may have been a bit tardy, but just bear patience with me when you are calling. Keep on the line because there is a delayed process here. The information has to be switched from one monitor to the next, so there may be a opportunity for you to become impatient, believing that you have not gotten through. So just wait and until, of course, I would indicate to you whether or not I've lost that one, or I will say the usual, of course, a pleasant good night. Let's get that straight because we have to work with the technology. I am not an expert, so I cannot correct it momentarily, but I would expect that people would bear within the system. Once again, if you have called and you got in and the phone is ringing and you didn't hear me answer, it's because I am waiting for the system to correct itself so that I can answer you. I can't say it and explain it better than that. And that being as it may, of course, as I said, in 2019, the highest amount of murders, and that record toppled the previous record of 2008 when Manning was around, Rowley was around, and that was 534 or 37 murders at that point in time. Now we are talking about, since Rowley has come in, 600. It seemed to be the new target, the new escalation, and of course, but to hear Rowley talk about in an emancipation function hosted by the Prime Minister's office, the Prime Minister's family, that he was part of a initiative to target African youths. And you heard him. He confessed that it is African youths that are creating the problems. We have always said that. If you ask him the question today, no. And because we are heading inexorably to about 600 again, he will tell you that it has nothing to do with his government. It has something to do with some amorphous, violent society, and he will make all of the platitudinous excuses with the appropriate, of course, hyperboles, as I said, and flowery language that clearly does not conform to what is required and what is expected of the population. You cannot tell us on the one hand that you were the best, that your 10-point plan for crime and criminality in 2015 has turned out to be zero, has turned out to be zilch, and you still want to stay in office. I am saying so because I wanted to continue to target the moral and ethical standards of this man and his government, because all of them must be coalescing and, of course, putting their minds together if they have such a thing, because it appears that common sense is not as common in this government as one would have expected, in spite of the fact that they would have attended, most of them, I understand, university, or somebody might have been a lawyer, somebody may be, of course, a rock scientist, and we can go on and on. The fact of the matter is that it is about time that they understand that they have a duty and responsibility, and that the social contract that they entered into back in 2015 as a party, as a leader headed by Rowley, have failed miserably, and therefore one can now conclude that the PNM has effectively collapsed. The PNM has collapsed. But before we go further, let me invite, of course, you to the program formally. A pleasant good night to all and sundry, East, West, North, South, Central, our friends in Tobago, and wherever you are streaming on the World Wide Web. A pleasant good day to you. Yes, I have been reluctant, maybe delinquent, in terms of requesting of you to simply share, whether you are on Facebook, whether you are on YouTube. Share this live. We are going inexorably to the next phase, and I think as soon as the new year breaks in 2024, we will be, of course, making and on this program to, of course, make efforts to communicate or to update you as to how we will be proceeding, having regard to the time, because of course one cannot be naive and not to recognize that the next year is an election year, effectively as announced, pronounced, and of course activated by the opposition leader Kamala Persad-Bissessar. Anybody who understands the politics of Trinidad and Tobago will know the possibility exists that there could be a snap election in the context that there is an election inevitably in 2025, but of course in the latter part of 2025, but the possibility exists that this government, having regard to the amount of failures, the amount of deceptions, and its continued attempt to, of course, continue to hoodwink and deceive, may well, of course, find some money, engage, of course, in their slush fund agenda, and then, of course, try to bribe the population into, of course, and of course, with the appropriate narrative, as we saw, of course, for the local government election. Imagine, and I cannot overemphasize, imagine that they never intended to have an election in 2023, a local government election I'm talking about. It was the Privy Council that forced them to have it, and then they claim that they never infringe our rights to have, even though the Privy Council said, and it is on that basis that they had to call the election. I say it was not a choice, it was a definite and unadulterated and pure command by the highest court in the land. I'm talking about the Privy Council gave Rowley and the instructions, and within certain parameters. In fact, it was so stringent, it was so meticulous that they had, of course, to go to Parliament and ratify all of the illegal things that they did leading up to that decision by the Privy Council. Let's go straight to the lines. Pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor. But it appears I've lost that one again. So I don't know if it is an issue beyond the situation in studio. Let me just make a cursory check to see if there is anything wrong with the system at this point in time, having regard to the fact that it's 2 calls, and I have not been able to, on a timely basis, get those calls activated so that you can express yourself. One of the important thing here is true democracy, where expression and communication and, of course, conversation, two-way, not one-way, is crucial to our understanding of the situation in Trinidad and Tobago, because I do not profess to be the repository of all information, of all knowledge, and therefore your input will certainly assist. Don't forget, share. Don't forget, of course, like. Don't forget, do all what is required in order to make this program as widely sought for and, of course, engaged in by people, of course, even if it's post, that is to say, after the program, they then download so that they can see what transpired the night before. Do not fail to do so. Every single one on the live, I request, I beseech that you share, and that you make certain that your friends, your family, as well as your acquaintances and even your enemies get a copy. Those persons who are in groups, then of course you have to light up your groups and inform them that, of course, the corridor transformation is here every night except on a Friday. So tomorrow you won't see me, but of course every other night, and of course on Sunday morning we have, of course, Dr. Khalid and myself. That too is getting very popular, and I want to thank Dr. Khalid for his volunteerism and his what I consider to be patriotism and his social commitment and his consciousness to recognize that we have a situation in Trinidad and Tobago that is multifaceted and multidimensional, and must be addressed in a similar fashion. That being as it may, and of course getting back into Dr. Rowley and his claim, you heard it, and just in case, of course, those of you who just tune in, I will start over again, because this is about whether or not the PNM has collapsed morally, intellectually, has outlived its usefulness, and has betrayed the people by virtue of the social contract entered into since 2015, since this is the second term from 2020 of the Rowley administration, that has produced nothing substantial for Trinidad and Tobago. Yet still, as I said, they will go and, of course, attempt to have a, comparatively speaking, snap elections so as to bamboos. And I was making the point that the fact that they had to have no choice, all the independence, and this is a democracy, and this is a sovereign state, and all of that hogwash. When you are a sovereign state and you breach the law, and you believe that that the law is not for you, that you can act and intervene and infiltrate independent institutions under the law, and the Constitution here is the law I am referring to, and the normal law, such as the integrity in public life. We see Dr. Rowley and they believe that they are above the law, and therefore the rule of law does not apply to them, and they can lie, they can connive, they can steal, they can rape, and I'm talking here rape in terms of the treasury of the country, and they can, of course, mismanage, and they can, of course, treat our resources as if it's their personal parlor. I say to you that is not only despicable, that is not only a measure of the betrayal, but it requires, of course, decisions that tells the population, tells the electorate in particular, that these people are toxic and the existential and real threat to the civilization and or the development and the progress of Trinidad and Tobago, and must be gotten rid of summarily. Summarily, people. They must be gotten rid of summarily. So here is the hypocritical Rowley in 2019, not in 1995, you know, not in 1991, you know, not in 1994, you know, not in 1996, you know, but in 2019, right? Just about 3 or 4 years ago, and he was talking about, of course, the young people who are engaged in crime and criminality. If we are to accept and would want to give him some kind of leeway by saying that, okay, the platitudes and the and the gravitation and the love for African youths when he was in opposition. And one can, of course, justify it, even though that is a difficult stretch. That is a difficult proposition. But let's assume that you say that, all right, Rowley, when he was opposed to the state of emergency imposed by Kabla Prasad Bisesa in 2011, and he said that African youths were targeted, and then he went up into the Beatum and said the Beatum consequential of police invasion, police, of course, inquiries, police concerns, police investigations in that particular area, and he went up there as opposition leader, he Rowley, and said to the population via, of course, the media, that listen, Beatum is a special place with special problems and requires special attention. Well, okay, let us give him that then. But in 2019, you cannot tell me that that is a valid argument, because the elephant in the atmosphere, the elephant in the room is that Rowley is the blasted prime minister of the country, and therefore those are things that he said then as opposition, as prime minister, he has no leeway. He must not get any wiggling room to worm himself out of it by simply telling us that again the Africans are the problem, even though he did not acknowledge it when he was, of course, opposition leader, because he was attempting, of course, to play the race card and to say that is the Africans that were being targeted by our Indian government. Let's be real, let's be practical. But of course, now he is confronted with the fact, and in 2019, he now has to say that the African youths, we were saying that all the time on the corridor transformation, on the ground report, etc., because my own profession as a criminologist, as a trained criminologist, so will certainly be those issues would have been, of course, something that would be automatic in terms of my attraction, and therefore the statistics, the data, the reports will demonstrate that the ethnic group that is creating havoc even to today, and even then, would have been, of course, the African community. But don't believe me, just go to the prison and find out what is the size of the African population in the prison, and you will get a clear idea as to what I'm talking about. That being as it may, a pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor. Pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor. Pleasant good night. Yes, indeed. I thought for a moment it was my telephone on this side. Go ahead.
Good night to everyone live on YouTube. Sorry for the program. What is up, what is all the program? Everything I'm going to say, and then when I call, I just know what to say. But I was
that's all right, that's all right. It doesn't matter if it's green verb, black verb.
I'm going to have to try write it down next time.
Oh, I see. Okay, go ahead. Not that's a methodology.
Right, so I will start by saying the PNM government has failed us all sector by all sectors. The youth arm, the women's arm, the prime minister, everybody has failed Trinidad and Tobago, has failed the youth of this country and the generations to come by the stupidity and the things that they are doing on a daily basis. Nobody seems to want to do anything about it. The elders have failed us miserably because they have, they just have this old time way and they don't want to change. PNM is not how it used to be. If somebody in the PNM was doing the job good, we wouldn't have to have these programs every night. They are not doing what they're supposed to do, right? They are preaching, they have the people out there preaching racialness. You understand? Trinidad was never a racial place. We always live with love. We could go here, there, and everywhere, eat, lime, drink. Our culture wasn't no racial thing. All of a sudden it's race and race, who don't like this, who don't like Negro people, who don't like Indian people. I mean, come on, man, Trinidad is a diverse place. We have all different types of people in Trinidad. Right? I had a little problem, and I just wanted to kind of vent it a little bit because I try my best to be as respectable as I can be. And have people on this life being miserable. I don't know why it is they're doing that. We Lavender people never ask to be where they are. Arima people never ask to be where they are. We are people at the end of the day. We have the same blood, right? And
I just want to inform
we
you that
need,
another person is on the line, so
yeah, the
you have
must
to
say
speed
what
up.
I
Yes.
say. Must
Yes.
say what I say. We need to
Yes.
respect one another. Don't go and make mischief by telling lies on people and trying to disrespect people. Do not do that, please. Right?
All right.
And I will call back. Thanks.
Yes, okay, no problem. Let's go straight, of course, to the other call that is waiting. It seems as though we're going to have some serious traffic tonight. Again, stay on the line, caller. I will answer your call, because if I answer it right just now, you will not be able to hear me. So let's see how the system will operate and of course, set it where it's supposed to be. Boy, let's see. All right, I'll take the chance. It doesn't seem as though it's going to work, but let me find out. Pleasant good night. Welcome. Pleasant good night. Welcome. Pleasant good night. Welcome. Pleasant good night. All right. Okay. So yes, the system did not respond appropriately there. But that being as it may, we must not be daunted. Let's continue. Don't feel that the last caller got in, so I suppose I'll have to make some arrangement where I don't have this switching from one monitor to the next in order to take your call. So we will deal with that in due course. Possibly I'll have it done overnight, so to speak. But the point I was making prior to the call, and of course I don't want to take the caller's concern as if it's not a concern for the corridor transformation. It is. All right, let's go straight, of course, to this call. Yes, indeed. Okay. All right. Pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Good night. I'll call back again.
Yes. All right. Yeah,
Yes.
because it appears
So,
that I lost that one. Go ahead.
all right. So I was saying, all should try to be respectable to everybody on the live. Right? Everybody have the views, and we appreciate that. But we cannot change who is Negro and who is Indian and who is shiny and who come from Lavantil and who come from here and there and everywhere. We choose to help people. This is a program, as I say all the time, and I'm sure Mr. Smith will say, it's a program to edify people. That is why I only come up here every night to listen to the program. If a certain individual feel you poop in gold and silver, it's fine with you. You know, you can live in your little own little cocoon. But it has people outside here. We have real problems, and we need to deal with it. We are not racial. We are not rich people, right? All come out and help one another. We don't need to be asking nobody for anything. We do this with love, right? And if we could help somebody, let us try and do that. Help your people in your community, make a change in your community. You can have people outside here who really need help and really need somebody to listen to them. We have a lot of poor people outside here, people who can't even feed a family Christmas and after Christmas, because after Christmas we have a life after that, right? It have people who starving and going through real stress outside here. A lot of people killing all the time. A lot of people robbing to make sure the family eat is wrong, but they're doing that. I sent a clip to Mr. Smith with a elderly shoplifting in a grocery because he probably don't have. And instead of doing the right way and call him and talk to him privately and probably help him out, they choose to show it all over Facebook instead of trying to help the man, not knowing what he's going through. Although it's wrong, but they could have helped him. And they choose to turn a blind eye. Right? We need to do something about the killing. Rowley and them need to do something about this killing. We losing too much of people every day. It's a stabbing, a shooting, a something. We need to deal with it. And we need to come out and try our best and do something about it. Let us come out instead of talking and being racial and all these things because we don't know when it will come in our home. Let us try and work together to make a better Trinidad and Tobago. All right, that's for me tonight. Have a wonderful night, everybody.
Thank you very much. And I mean, and let me put what she have said in perspective, because that is my assistant who brought to my attention only this evening, just before I came on to the program, a video of a senior citizen caught on camera shoplifting. But one time, I formed an opinion having regard to what I know prior to that. You see, I am in the process. In fact, I think he has almost gotten through. But we have a case where a gentleman was deported from the United States about 10 or 12 years ago. But he never put anything in place for of course, his sustenance in the latter days. Let's put it that. He's from Laventille. And he has reached the qualification age of pension, the national pension. But the authorities want him to prove that he is not getting anything from the United States because of the length of time that he stayed there, even though the time for him to qualify as a pensioner in Trinidad has reached, because he reached the residential age, the time when you have to be in Trinidad living for a certain period prior to your application for pension. So those of you who don't know that, well, I'm telling you now. And so he has qualified. The thing about it is now, he has to prove after all those years that he is not getting a pension or anything at all from the United States. You talk about pressure. You talk about up and down. So one day, that is why I love to go on Prince Street and East Port of Spain and so on, because people really don't know. So one of my, let's say, fraternizing colleagues, I ain't gonna call his name because it's a popular name, so plenty of people, if I call it, I know those persons listening in East Port of Spain and so on will know who it is, so I'm not going to do it unless he authorized me to do it. And I have not asked him, and I didn't tell him that I'm going to do this tonight. Oh, it's only because of what she just said that I am doing it, and therefore by way for promoting information. And I'm saying that in a particular context, so I will give the context after. But the fact of the matter is that this man, for about 2 years, searching and scratching all over, and when he sent up to the States, because he has to do it online, so he doesn't have access to computer, etc. Even when he went, of course, to one of the cyber service stores, those places where you can, of course, access computer service, he still wasn't successful. So they brought the matter to me, and I want to tell you frankly, only 2 weeks ago we said that we are going to do it in a particular way. So I used my own resource. I communicated with the people, and of course they told me what to do as far as the embassy here in Trinidad is concerned, and we sent the information about him. All we wanted to find out is whether or not from the social services system in the United States, whether this man is a beneficiary of a pension or any other welfare assistance in the United States. And you wouldn't believe it took so long, 2 years. So the next 2 days or so, having, of course, found out the information, the specific information, emailed the specific people in the specific department, I got a return email saying that they don't have any record of him and he is not on record of receiving any pension as far as the United States government is concerned, but they cannot give any additional information because he is not a receiver of pension, I think, or any service. So that in itself tells you that he has a clean bill. He is not the beneficiary of anything. It is on that. When it was submitted, I put it, of course, I printed and so on and gave them a copy. And it was on that basis they decided to now complete his application. Yeah. No. But I will wait until after this call because we give priority to the callers, and then of course I'll complete what I am attempting to say and the context in which I am talking. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
A pleasant good night to you, Lennox, and to everybody on the chat, and season greetings to everybody.
Yes, same
Lennox,
to you.
are you hearing me good?
Loud and clear,
Right.
loud and clear.
Good. Lennox, last night you touched on a subject. Never mind, I didn't call, but I was listening to you.
Good.
And dealing with people on the chat. Anyway, you touched on a subject last night, and you again raised this tonight, right? Rowley and Africa. Rowley was the one, and you rightly said it so. Rowley was the one, Kamala Turan, right?
Yes.
Because these African angels never committed a crime. When he called off, yeah, they never come. So, put up a video where
Yes.
they're robbing people on Duncan Street. Right?
Yes.
They were, according to him, there were no angels. And there's an SOE. Once there is a warrant out for your arrest, they're going to implement it. So whether or not they did something wrong and then being part of the gang culture, they were arrested. It had nothing to do with Kamala don't like the African youth. But I want to ask Keith Rowley, what did you do to the African youth in La Hoqueta with the Pachoy project? What did you do to the African youth with the DSS money? Lennox, whatever became of that money, and everybody went quiet. But it was no susu money. It was bribe for votes. That is why you find it strange, Lennox, if you put in a susu and you ain't got your money, you ain't gonna kick a stick.
Of course.
And everybody quiet. But I remember reading on a Facebook page where somebody said, I can't remember the person's name now, that it was bribe for votes. They were given that money to vote for the PNM, and I have no reason to doubt it. What has Rowley, I'm going to ask it again, what has Rowley done for the African youth in the last 8 years? You took away the laptops from them. You destroyed their lives. Their blood is flowing in the streets. What have you done? And you and Hines wash all your hands off it. And we are headed for 600 murders again. Rowley is a mocking pretender. He pretended to care about his country. He lied his way into office. And the same thing that brought him into office is the same thing that is going to take him out. I keep saying that over and over, and that's a gift. Look at him, you cabal, shut up. Every come with the stupid stuff talking about you can't talk a mediator, they can't do it. What all of them doing there now? What all of them doing?
Being spectators to the unfolding events.
Yeah.
Spectators.
Yeah. You didn't want to, the same thing you put for Kamala for. You tell her to shut up. Why you didn't tell Rafghan to shut up too? Why didn't you tell her? Why didn't you tell Ralph Gonzalez the same thing? But no, all of his buddies, right? And I want to say again, they're talking about Kamala, right? Was it Kamala? Because of Kamala, we had a local government elections? Was it because of Kamala we get to find out what happened with the merit list and with A&V drilling and a lot more things because of Kamala? So when they want to talk about Kamala, weak and Kamala this and Kamala that and Kamala the other, and she's a drunk and she's a sponge and she's whatever, the woman is doing her job. Regardless of how you feel about her, she's doing her job. And I also want to say, it's good for him, and it's good for him. You put the PNM there. You helped put the PNM there. You broke the law because you had no right to put up that guard booth without permission. But you feel because you helped PNM, get it off, you have got away with it. You see, according to the say, car is a blatant. I don't want to say the other way. This is how I have to say it. That's just thinking of Kamala. Because just recently, talk about how she's a drunk and she always drunk and she couldn't get up off the stool. You try sitting down on a low stool like that, that's if you could get up. That's why the city and we have then flat off. I want to say something to Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie, it was refreshing to know that you read the chat. And I want to tell you, also talk about the nastiness. Joseph and Mark, what bum bum or something, so bum bum fly, I don't know. The nastiness that they say to women. And as a woman yourself, I hope God try to do something about it. And as you read it, I hope that you do something as well about it. Because Lennox, they are too disrespectful. They are too disrespectful. And you can see where it's coming from. Because when you have a leader that does not respect women, those are the same. Lennox, thanks a lot for listening to me and my 2 cents. You take care. Have a good night. I'm listening.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And I will be the first to say that you have the authority to not only call, not only make your presentation, but for the rest of us to listen, including yours truly, Lennox Smith. I did not ask you to, and you readily volunteer because of your patriotic disposition to be the external, what I consider to be contributor to the corridor transformation. And I wish you, of course, all the best as well for the Christmas season. And as we move inexorably to the new year, we are going to be vicious, we are going to be belligerent, we are going to be insistent, we are not going to relent, we are going to be persistent, and we will get the job done. What is the job? The PNM must exit office, Dr. Rowley, and they are not only toxic, not only displaying a cesspool of danger to the country, but is the existential threat to the democracy, to the rule of law, to the independent institutions in this country, and to good governance and democracy. We have seen too much not to be concerned, especially those of us who either have the means, even if we have to talk, as of course the contributions that have been made, not just here, but elsewhere by Mr. Santa Cruz and others. And therefore, that ought to be the focus. Nothing else is important to Trinidad and Tobago at this time, but of course, to make certain that these people do not benefit from the resources, the largest, limited as they may be, but believing that somehow they have the devilish and the satanic and the Luciferian right to, of course, malign, deceive, generate policies and programs to pauperize, and then of course come and pretend that they are governance, and that they are prime minister and ministers, as they of course continue to create the deteriorating and unholy scenario that is taking Trinidad and Tobago downhill, and of course spiraling in such a way that one can safely say that we can land as a failed state, as a country that of course was once the envy of the rest of the Caribbean, if not the hemisphere, if not the world. And now, if we do not take cognizant and we do not take corrective actions, do not take remedial action, we will find ourselves going down with this sinking ship caused by Rowley and of course his minions. That is the commitment, that is the mission. But let me just quickly conclude what I was saying before Ms. Santa Cruz, our external contributor, came in, because she said certain things that I want to also focus on, but will be mixed into what my conclusion is in terms of the basis for what I'm saying. So here it is, this man, we eventually got the thing remedied from the United States, and now it is before the social welfare, and he is about to get his social welfare check, his pension check. But I want to tell you what transpired. The reason why I made every effort to assist is because when I inquired about him, he had just came out of jail. You know what I say? I say that he just come out of jail. So I want to know at that age what a man like that could do to end up in jail. I think he made a 6 months. Guess what? The man was found guilty of shoplifting. You know what I say? I said the man was found guilty of shoplifting. And when my assistant gave me that case today, another case of a senior citizen shoplifting, then I said, well, this thing is a trend. It is widespread. It is what I thought was an aberration, what I thought was a fleeting moment of indiscretion by a senior citizen. It turns out that it may well be a social phenomenon that needs and requires investigations. And I ain't taking no chance. So as a consequence, I told her that, listen, send that to me. And tomorrow night, of course, I will play that one where, of course, he is caught pushing something in his pocket while pretending, of course, to be shopping. Yeah. So why have I said all of that? I want to make the point that there are people who are desperate. And when, of course, we on this program, as has been for the past 2 years, every year, we have several different occasions during the course of the year where we ask for assistance with respect to children's books, food in particular, groceries and so on, particularly Easter time, as well as Christmas. Not Carnival. Notice we are very eclectic. Not Carnival, but Christmas time. A very emotional and sensitive times in Trinidad and Tobago, where the emotions and the feelings and the atmosphere is one of love for our fellow man, and in particular for the most vulnerable, the children, the elderly, and those families, particularly those that have a single parent environment, but more significantly a woman, a single parent who has to be chief cook, bottle washer, and every damn thing else. And so we cannot sit here, even though we ourselves are not well endowed, and see that level of decadence, that level of poverty, that level of groveling exist and not do something about it. And it doesn't matter where, because we have assisted people in Chaguanas, we have assisted people in Point Fortin, we have assisted people in Lebre, we have assisted people along the East-West Corridor, from right here in Laventille and environs, of course, and East Port Spain, right up the corridor to Malabar. I remember 2 consecutive Christmases now, I delivering in Malabar and Arima and environs. Christmas morning, we delivering hampers because we want to make certain that the chair and the period, that symbolizes that particular time of giving the baby Jesus and his birth and his, of course, presence and his gift to the world, that they too can celebrate it, even though it may be from a mundane perspective and not from the religious significance. But as you know, it has a mundane as well as a spiritual aspect of Christmas. Whichever way, the common thread has always been to give, and of course to give, it means somebody has to receive, but hopefully the receiver is always, of course, the person who is really in need and beyond, of course, the average person's take, and therefore the feeling of giving is crucial, as I said. And there's a fellow who calls on the ground report regularly. He is in fact, they have taken his license. But he came to me to see if I can write a letter, but it was too late because he came the Friday and the Monday they asked him to bring in his license, suspending it, of course, because he reached over the limit for chalking up, of course, points to have his permit withdrawn. But one of the things that caught my attention when he spoke and told me about it is that at Christmas morning, he was, of course, speeding down the priority bus route Christmas morning to deliver hampers, and it reminded me about myself. And you will understand why I would gravitate to such an assistant and to such an individual. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Good night, Lennox. How
Good
are
night to you.
Good. Lennox, can I say something that's been bothering me for a long time?
Could you speak up? Could you speak up and come probably a little closer to your device?
Yeah. Okay, can you hear me now?
Loud and clear, beautiful. Because we want to be as articulate as possible. We don't want to miss a syllable.
All right, that's good. I was gonna say, this whole thing with, I want to get your opinion on something, okay?
Go ahead.
And you tell me if see, when I was watching Parliament, I used to watch I watch Parliament religiously for 8 years now, and I don't really watch it much anymore, because in Parliament there's a chat session if you watch it on YouTube. And they blocked me on the chat session because I was typing comments about the Prime Minister and the PNM, and there are people on that chat and the administrator on that web chat.
Right.
And if they feel like, hey, you're not inappropriate, you're saying negative things, we're gonna block you. And they block you. And so
Right.
they have all these other people here. But one day I was listening. This was a few years ago, before the AV oil and drilling thing burst out. And I remember I was listening, and Franklin Khan was making a presentation at that time. And he said, he made the comment, and he was talking about the oil drilling and the income that was coming in from different oil companies. And somebody said, somebody said, that's your friend, your family, your friends, those are friends of yours, And he said, and they mentioned brash. They said brash. It sounded like bash, but I swear, it sounded brash.
Okay.
And at that time, right? He said that family brings in about 50 million US dollars and millions of dollars every month or every quarter, right? And I was like, wow, that's a lot of money. And they were saying how he favored this family or this company. And so the next day, people started talking, and I said, well, yeah, I made a comment on the radio about the Brash family, but it sounded like bash.
Okay.
And then AV oil and drilling came into the picture, but I did I was curious about this company that Mr. Franklin Can said.
Mm-hmm.
And I did research on it, and I saw a video of this guy, and he owns a company in Trinidad called Well Oil Services,
Mm-hmm.
and they're a multi-million-dollar company
Mm-hmm.
in Trinidad. They own oil rigs here, and they've been here since colonial times. They're a white family, and
Okay.
they own Cocoa Bell. I'm just saying that this is interesting, okay? And when Franklin Can mentioned the kind of money that this company was bringing in, and I saw their setup on the internet, and then I compared that with AV oil and drilling, it just didn't add up.
Mm-hmm.
AV oil and drilling, I believe, even though they were corrupted, they were following an honest system where the government trusts the people who are depositing the oil, and you measure it, you bring the oil to the whatever the storage, and you say, you report it as accurate, but really it's the honor system saying, hey, here's all the bread, but I really am leaving you crumbs, really,
Mm.
because you're cheating slowly, but it's not noticeable. And I thought they seemed so peddly compared to the millions that Franklin Can was saying from this other company. And nobody ever talked about this other Brash family. And they said Bash. And I think if somebody were to go back and listen to his comment
Mm-hmm.
and say, is AV Oil and Drilling making that kind of money? Are they bringing in all this US into Trinidad? It just didn't make sense. So I make my comment because sometimes, and AV Oil and Drilling was represented by what is that, Mr. Maharaj, right, the lawyer,
Mm-hmm.
and they were found not guilty. And so I kept saying to myself, like, this was kind of, they took this news and they ran with it, but did anybody really listen to that, what Franklin Can was saying? Did they go back to the Hansard and I don't know if they record back talk or bench talk or whatever you call it, but it didn't add up, I'm making this comment and people will get angry and stuff, but it just, when you see a company is bringing in millions of dollars, like 25 million, 50 million US dollars a quarter or something, and you compare that to what AV Oil and Drilling, the setup they had, it was paltry. It just didn't make sense. And then it just, I feel like sometimes, I'm going to be real honest here, like people are untouchable, certain people, and you can't investigate them, you can't talk about them because they are the real stakeholders in this country and you
Yeah.
can't criticize them. So they're untouchable. And
Yeah.
the Elias and those other people, those are just, they are not, that's not even the top of the line because that's just scratching the surface. You know what I mean? Because
Yes. Yes.
the
Yes.
prime minister did say that in the non-manufacturing sector, people were making a lot of money, and there are people in the non-manufacturing sector where you can't touch, and they control a lot of procurement contract. And the Bash family, I mean, they get a lot of money because like they get a lot of money in the oil industry. They supply Heritage, they supply all the big
Yes.
players,
Yes. Yes. They have this
and so
this lease contractor for wells that were left dormant, and they were supposed to, of course, revive
you're
them
talking about
and
no, I'm
make
not talking
something.
about. I'm not talking about the Bash. I'm talking about the Brash family, the Brash.
No, the brush. Oh,
This is
okay.
the fact. Yeah, the Brash, and their website. If you go into their website, they don't really, but they do a lot of training for drilling. If you want to go to school and learn drilling, but they've been sued a lot too by their workers
But
for
I'm
not
not
giving their
familiar with
workers
the
the
with the
equipment and
brush.
supplies.
I'm not familiar with the brush. I'm familiar with the bash, but I'll certainly going to
Right.
look it
That's
up as
why.
well.
Yeah,
All
please
right.
do look up Brash Well Oil, and
Okay.
it's a
All right.
big
I'll
company, and
certainly do that.
nobody.
I'll certainly do that.
And we never the other comment I wanted to make was that we keep getting the same people who always come when you ask comments about the oil industry. You get the same comments like tax driver, whatever, and the tax driver, and you get the same people, but you don't get the people like the Brash family who
All
they're
right.
billionaires and they
Yeah,
never
I
comment.
don't know.
Why are
I
we here
ought to
for
know.
them?
I ought to know. You can know, and I don't know. So thanks for sharing the information. Thanks for sharing the
All
information,
right,
man. Yes, yes,
all right,
indeed.
look it up, okay? Just look
Yeah,
it
I
up,
certainly will.
and
I'll
look up
talk
Coco.
about it. I'll talk to you about it tomorrow.
Yeah, look up
Or
Coco Bell.
Yes. Well, not tomorrow night, but I'll try to talk about
yeah.
it tomorrow morning on the ground report. All right. Thanks very much for your contribution and the information. We need to know who are the players, who are the ones pushing the knobs behind the scene, in order, of course, to influence the decadence and the disquieting situation that is Trinidad and Tobago's reality today by a group of individuals who clearly, on the surface and in all practicality, have lost their way and have collapsed on the job. That being as it may, let me go straight to a phone line, my phone. Pleasant good night. Yes, good night to you.
How are you going, man?
Well, I'm all right. Fighting up here, of course, dealing with the multiple complex and simple issues, yes.
I don't know if you look at the news tonight, but when you come back home,
Yes.
you will pull up TV6.
Uh-huh.
You know what that you set up.
Uh-huh.
Now, before this guy come talk to the hand today,
Before the what?
he talked to the hand today, the peace talk.
Yes. I had a brief look at it, yeah.
Well, and you know, I keep wondering what it all is talking about. You have a man talking over communication on you have the old map. And everybody wants to talk.
Yeah.
So one day one guy and I go come in. Personally, I would not go in that talk, but then I say, you know, guy ain't going to go say all kind of things about them.
Yeah.
So, they talking, but when I have your translator, he shake my door hand, but you have your head down. Why they not? I'll ask him if I tell you.
Go ahead.
So, when I talk, he all must be. And everything, but this last night, he said, he having no talk with no more than talk and thing.
Right. That is what he said clearly. Yeah, that was the communique coming out of Guyana. Yes. Yeah. Waiting for the ICJ. Yes.
Right. So, here I look at it, I will tell me wrong.
Go ahead.
You have a man come talking war, which is what you give them what you just make it out and say. You own my phone and I think.
Yeah.
And can we come create a peace talk? One man talking war with the Christian and don't you talk peace.
Yeah.
Right, I clear that you have a sense, but then you and even when they're up. If we just stay to the talk. So when they put talk no more, somebody I know what is. You know, what is the next phase? Man, you have Ali, she say, what next phase? Yeah, I don't know if it's man again.
Yeah.
Pull it off with the map of Guyana behind it. This is the map of Guyana. So talk done. This is the map of Guyana, but the conversation done.
Right.
You come, but you don't come in with you don't join map of it.
Yeah. I saw it when they arrived. All of them just in a top white. Yeah, and they have copies of this redrawn map of Venezuela incorporating the Essequibo region as theirs. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But you didn't even pull off the map, but when you go the map and show them.
No, I didn't see that part. No.
But when you go back to the when you want them.
Okay.
When you reach out to when you go talk again.
Uh-huh.
Because imagine that, you have a man coming talking war. He don't respect ICJ. Don't tell guys to get out to join your own map. But they only have to show, right?
Yeah.
Can we come? I say, what crap is that? But over and he's smarter than them. Even DJ party, I want for me, he shape what you want. Right?
So all the niceties, all the diplomatic niceties, was observed, right? Okay.
Yeah, you want to give a translator, but it's a translator.
Right.
Take the time you're talking slow, but you understand everything. Everybody understands everything.
Right.
So that does. Some idiot in the crowd, I get the food was. You go, watch your back, you go.
Yeah.
But ask him, man, so what is the next thing? But the man get vexed. Next thing? What next thing? And you unravel the king from Rogian?
Yeah.
Mapa Guyana, the Mapa Guyana.
Yeah, that's it. Animated finish there, or there were other.
Everybody was there.
All right. Well, I'm gonna take a look at it. But what's the role? What's the role of Trinidad and Tobago? Because that is the elephant in the room.
But that's what they go do.
So he went there as an observer. He went as an observer, as a spectator to the Guyal. To the Guyal.
Set up a trap for Opana.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are true contenders. They are very experienced, and you really cannot get away with them easily because they have suffered a lot and they have gone through that before. I mean, it was 1899 and then back in 1966, and then of course there were other things, and now it is before the International Court of Justice, referred there by the Secretary General of the United Nations. So there's nothing more.
And you have a man coming wing here when I see you.
Yes.
So you map and bring them gunters, create the atmosphere, if you put it to the talk.
Yes.
I think I might tell you go, but the rest, because they want to watch each other, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some people were speculating that the Americans might have rushed in there and take him up because they have a bounty on his head and all that. But the Americans smarter than that.
Yeah. Well, what did you do?
Huh?
Diplomatic talk done?
Yeah.
But what is the next thing? I can't remember who did it that asked him that.
All right.
The man on the rabble, a man from...
Well, of course, I expect the headlines tomorrow to be, of course, that there has been no progress with the talks. The Venezuelan will see what I have to say. Yeah. Yeah, well, right. So, therefore, there has been no progress, but they met. That is the most important thing. Right. Right, beautiful. Right, that's it. All right, well, thanks very much because we're moving faster to... Yeah, I certainly will. All right, thanks. Yes, okay, bye-bye, yes. Yeah, of course. We take it in several ways. If somebody called me on the normal phone, I certainly going to take it as well because, you know, the system is not as reliable as we would like. I ain't saying it unreliable. It is not as reliable as we would like, you know. We have to use the appropriate words to encourage people to still call. But that being as it may, of course, there are several things that Mr. Santa Cruz said. There are several things that the last caller said. Let me deal with the last caller first quickly before, of course, we go back to that video that started this conversation because the essence of tonight's exercise is whether or not the PNM has collapsed under this fella who clearly has lost his way and has been so far from the point where he started because he claimed to be African advocate, African sympathizer and empathizer. And we have seen that he has been engaging in what is called pseudo-racism. Let me repeat. Dr. Rowley and the PNM has been engaged in pseudo-racism. And now I have to speedily, of course, explain that because, remember, Pandey called Ken Gordon a pseudo-racist and Gordon took him to court. I don't want anybody to take me to court, so I have to explain it. But I just want to say that coming out of that experience where Gordon, the court awarded him $1 because he said that he take him to court simply because he wanted to teach him a lesson. And the court say we must not to be used for somebody to teach somebody a lesson. It must be about justice and fairness, etc., etc. So I want to make that clear. That was the outcome there. But let me tell you, a pseudo-racist is one who uses his own race. Let me repeat, a pseudo-racist is one who uses his own race to advance his or her own agenda. In other words, utilize his own people, manipulate his own people, undermine his own people if necessary, and then, of course, to have his own way and to, of course, appear to all. Put another way, to get his own way and to, of course, pursue his own ambition. Well, that is Dr. Rowley. And in case you want to get an example of that in history, as far as the essence of this pseudo-racism concept is concerned, then I think the greatest one was during, of course, the slave trade, when, of course, Africans were holding Africans for the Europeans or the colonialists, and they and of course selling their own kind to the white man so that they could be sold into slavery. That is a case of pseudo-racism since then. The use of your own people for your own agenda. I can't put it better than that. I can't put it better than that. So that is Rowley. And what are the elements? What are the indicators that he is a pseudo-racist? Well, when you go to the Beatum and you say that Beatum is a special place with special problems and needs special, of course, remedies, when, of course, in Emancipation Day, as he did there in 2019, he said that, listen, I was part and parcel under the Manning administration of initiative that focus on Africans, youths, because they are the ones accepted, they are the ones confessed, they are the ones accepted, they are the ones that are creating, of course, the pain, ache, agony, the violence, the home invasion in the context of today, but the robberies and the disruption in the education system whilst they were growing up, and of course eventually becoming adults and therefore mature criminals, and they are the ones that are occupying the prisons of this country to the tune of almost 90 to 95% of the population in the prison are Africans. Understand that. So therefore, what is the elephant in the room? The elephant in the room is that Dr. Rowley now as Prime Minister, it is abominable. It is asinine. It is a case of relegating him to a speck of protoplasm, most despicable, the stuff that living things are made of, and ought not to be even in existence, because that level of betrayal, not only at the level of betraying the social contract, but when he appeared to be a philosopher and philosophizing, and of course an advocate for the advancement and the motivation and the development of the African youths in particular, and therefore by extension the African community, he has neglected and abdicated that responsibility as Prime Minister, and therefore another cog in his despicable conduct and the level of hypocrisy that is stereotypical of Dr. Rowley. Tell me anything else. There's nothing more to talk. He appeared to be a corruption buster under Manning, having gotten, of course, what he felt he ought to be, because Manning was ineffective, inefficient, went to Likoto, etc. He has now turned out to be a corruption promoter rather than a corruption buster. And now that he said what he said with respect to young people, he now, of course, looking for what? What are the indicators? Not only Africans, the majority, the vast majority in the prisons today, justifying, of course, the conduct of Kamala Prasad Bisesa and that SOE in 2011, and of course neutralizing what he was saying when he was opposition. But today, he continues, of course, to seek through the parliament legislation to further emasculate and to downgrade and to pauperize and to, of course, superficially and amorphously contribute, whether conscious or unconsciously, the further deterioration of the African stock, of the African youth, of the African segment, of the African what I consider to be elements in the Trinidad and Tobago society, by, of course, asking for bail law to, of course, keep them in jail longer, as well as anti-gang acts or laws to, of course, punish devastatingly the very people that he said that he loved back in 2011, etc., and when he was opposition leader. This man is the consummate and, of course, the epitome and the quintessential hypocrite. He is the criminal. Because you are in a position so to do. When Kamala Prasad Bissasan, they recognized that there was this cadre of pain, agony, pressure, and violence, and threatening, of course, the stability of Trinidad and Tobago. What she did, she initiated, of course, not a commission of inquiry, that ain't doing anything, that and it's too long. She initiated a research, an investigation to, of course, advise the government then as to what to do with these young people who are disrupting the society, the school system by way of violence, etc. And it was not dedicated or focused on Africans, because the report shows that they studied all the schools in the country. I myself was part of that, and I went, of course, from Point 14, sitting in maxi taxis and so on, and observing the conduct of these students when they are leaving school and their general conduct. And it was both Africans and Indians. The only difference is that the Indians was doing it much less than, of course, the Africans, so much so that it is reflected, of course, in the prison to the extent to which that they are engaged, because the next major group in the prison, about 5%, 10% for the most, are Indians. And this man, on an Emancipation Day, acknowledging the fact, and you will hear him, that the African is not doing well. He knew that before. That's the point I'm making. He knew it before. And so, just before, of course, I started the video again, I want to tell, of course, those who may have a different view in terms of our commitment to assisting. It is against that background. And we are not demanding that you assist. We are not demanding. We are saying you do it to the extent to which you can. And if you can't, then we accept across the board. And those persons who are on the live and, of course, are for want of a better term, intimidating and harassing the female on the live, I say to you, you are little boys. In fact, I will put it to you that you are little girls to be, of course, intimidating and, of course, saying untoward and derogatory things about female only because you want to follow a rapist and a pedophile as your leader. You know what I'm saying? I say that you, who of course are intimidating and of course harassing the female on this live, I say that to hell with you, and of course go to hell and get the hands. Your leader is a blasted rapist and a pedophile. You women should take solace in that man and do not, of course, have these little girls intimidate you so that you could not make your contribution to your favorite program. No, don't do it. It's better you try and fail than fail to try. Don't do it. And you don't have to contribute, of course, to the volunteer supporter that we ask. Let me go straight to the line, of course. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor. Welcome to the corridor. Yes, indeed. Sorry about that. Welcome. Pleasant good night.
Hey, Lennox. Pleasant good night to you and everybody on the live. Good night.
Yes.
Good night.
Good night to you.
Right. So, Trinidad and Tobago, brace on yourself. I want you to listen to this.
Certainty is being provided here, and I want people to understand that property tax will be applicable from January 1st, 2024. The Valuation Division has already commenced printing and dispatching valuation notices in November of 2023. As of the middle of November 2023, the Valuation Division had issued 33,787 valuation notices through Tiki Post. We expect that all valuation notices for residential properties, which is in excess of 200,000 residential properties that have been valued, will be delivered early in 2024. On this basis, property tax will now be implemented from January 1st, 2024.
You understand?
Yeah.
So this people in feel, this people in feel, they will catch me and they ship in a TT post, come and drop the letter here today. But the thing is, the property of my father name and my father died. So my old lady tell the TT post woman, say, here we go on. That property on my husband name here, you go to wait until he come home to sign for that, you know. But it's when my father coming home because he done there and going on much years and we let she go back with she letter.
That's right.
She say we had to sign for it. She say we had to wait until that man come home. So Trinidad and Tobago, they're coming for all the property. Them exempt themselves for 25 years so them can't pay nothing. But you and I must pay. According to Keith Rowley, Trinidad and Tobago, people are stupid. Dr. Analyst.
Yes, indeed. And that is an appropriate term because we told you here on the corridor, on the ground report, please delay, find a way not to sign those forms that were sent there to, of course, conform with the requirements based on the legal decision that was made when Rowley and Imbert issued false and fake evaluation notices saying, purporting it to come from the evaluation commissioner or the commissioner of evaluations office. That never occurred. The court then said that not only must he sign, because he said he didn't sign those first ones, those that were there, and they were promoting the same penalties, $5,000 and imprisonment. And we were telling you that had nothing to do with the police. It has nothing to do with the courts. It has to do with the evaluation division that doesn't have a staff to, of course, send out there into the community, having regard to the violence that is out there. People ain't taking that work. But what they did, they circumvent that, they short circuit that and send it by mail. Of course, nobody tackles the postman and the postwoman. So it was deposited. And mainly those senior citizens who believe that they can't make a jail now, and that the fight that they would have had, their gumption and their tenacity and resistance have gone because of their physical frailness, and went and sign off and, of course, get the people to evaluate the place for them, not knowing that if the evaluation people to whom those forms would have gone back not satisfied based on the area you live, they will come and do their own evaluation. But you have assisted them because you have tremendously cut down the workload and therefore increased the length of time that they would have taken in order to put at least half of the 400,000 residents on that roll that the court said must be populated in order to roll out the property tax. I would have thought that would take until 2025, when, of course, the election will come, and we got the assurance as we got between 2010 and 2015 by Kamala Prasad Bisesa, the UNC, that property tax in the way that Rowley and they want to implement it will not be. But of course, you may have to pay it from next year until they get back into office in 2025 to rescind that entire barbaric, evil, wicked, and of course pauperizing mechanism. Totally oblivious to the fact that they have as well to implement. I talk about Rowley and they implement, of course, increase in electricity. It has started. I see a new bill. I will bring a copy of it. I got one for myself so I can show you it. Computer generated. But it appears that they have accepted a month-to-month. I will see at the end of next month whether or not another bill will come rather than the bi-monthly process, meaning that every 2 months. So you have that as well to pay. And all we ask you to do is to delay. Tell them, send it back. Don't be home. Leave it in the mailbox. But no, you are law-abiding. You are intimidated by a bunch of criminals in public office, high public office, including that of the Prime Minister and the cabinet and therefore ministers in this country. Come on. But as people say, who don't hear must what? Must feel. So therefore, that being as it may, so they are boasting now of having gotten their way, and they engage in this brinksmanship. They take it to the edge. We heard Imbert himself that he raised it once, and he raised it twice, and didn't riot yet. Your complacency is too obvious, and for a belligerent, and for conmen, and for criminals, and for miscreants, and for rapscallions, that is a paradise. They will walk you like salts, and that is what Rowley and they have been doing, utilizing, of course, language that will make you believe that somehow they are powerful. But we saw how the Privy Council bring them back down to earth. And you don't understand that. And even when that is the case, that's to tell you how these people are insistent on doing evil in this country to the poor and vulnerable and unsuspecting. Because he went to the parliament still and saying that he didn't infringe the constitution. But we couldn't vote. We couldn't vote before August 14. He couldn't vote because he went with his slim majority and pretended, of course, he has a mandate and tell us that we can't have local government election until this month, December. And then, of course, in reality, 90 days afterwards, it would be about March of next year somewhere, just after Carnival. That was the plan. Maybe we are not getting to a sufficient degree. A person or you out there are not doing your work in terms of spreading the news, because one must tell one. It must be done even by viva voce. Viva voce simply means from mouth to mouth. Viva voce. Yes, indeed. That is how we have to do. We must be our brother's keeper. We must be our brother's keeper at this time of tragedy and horrific, unrelenting oppression by a government that will not relent and believe that somehow it has a devilish right to do what it is doing. In circumstances where they thief the elections, so nothing is correct or is sane about this crop of people. They are total craps. That's what they are. Craps. But let's hear Rowley in the beginning before we go to Kamala.
This emancipation celebration that we started in Trinidad and Tobago very many years ago, I distinctly recall, I think it was in 2003 or 2004 thereabouts, there was a big event in our parliament because there was a project that was started. It was a pilot project to focus on trying to prevent the young of the African population in the urban areas from going astray and going so far astray that their behavior could threaten the nation. That project required that the government of Trinidad and Tobago focus on the problems of the urban youth in Trinidad and Tobago, which were largely of African families. And as I stood up for that project, I was accused of racism because the project was focusing on the problem, and the problem was that Trinidad and Tobago African problem. It wasn't happening in the Chinese community or the Indian community or the Arab community. It was a problem in the African community where the African youth, by the tens of thousands, were going astray and choosing violence and criminality as a way of life. And what is worse, that was coming right out of the breakdown of the families of the African population. And the time has come where this Emancipation Day ought not just to be a day for frivolity and wearing nice African clothes and walking in the street. The time has come for the Afro-Trinidadian population to use Emancipation Day, to focus and reflect and have serious conversations about where we are in a nation where we are underperforming. In a nation where we are underperforming. In a nation where we are underperforming. Sounds bad. These are the facts. Look at the level of violence which is commonplace in Trinidad and Tobago today. Look at the level of violence which is commonplace in Trinidad and Tobago today. Who is affected? Who is carrying it out? Who is defending it? Who is being ignored? Who is being ignored? Who is being ignored? I ask you, let 2019 be that year when we take a commitment, make a commitment that Trinidad and Tobago, its African population, will focus on being the best that we can be in a nation that we can all be proud of. Because Trinidad and Tobago is easily the most attractive, the most beautiful, the nation with the most potential of all the world's people. But let us not for 1 minute believe that this is not a problem for all the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Let us not contribute to our own situation by not doing the best we can in nation building, in family building, in community building in Trinidad and Tobago.
I've said before,
But of course, it's a problem for the entire country because rain, when it falls, doesn't fall on one man's house top. The Africans, those who are criminally oriented, that you say you have a handle on, and you say that you'll be able to address, and you say, whilst in opposition, that there is a special plan you have, and they distress the rest of the country, and it cuts across, of course, all the ethnicity, whether it's Chinese, whether, of course, it be Caucasians, whether it be Indians, and whether it be Africans as well. They feed off themselves like typical parasites. But you said that you have the solution, and suddenly you have abandoned them. Abandon them. Don't tell me CPEP, URP, and of course, MITAP, YTEP, MITAP, and all the other programs that are 6 months duration, because you believe that that is sufficient for, in terms of expenditure, but for those very people who you say you love. The minimum, of course, my program, for example, MLIO, the minimum is a year. And if they have not responded appropriately in terms of behavioral change, because that is what you want them in there for behavioral change, and if it is that there is the attitude does not conform with what is required, then they spend another 6 months or another year. We have had that. We have had people spending 3 years in our program because they haven't a longer time, taken a longer time to, of course, adjust it to what is required. And what is required? What is required of these young people? Then you must have an end game. You must have an end product. What is the end product? They must be, of course, law-abiding and contributing citizens. And what are the pillars? What are the variables? What are the cogs? What are the building blocks to a young man to be, of course, a contributing, law-abiding citizen? Well, they must have, of course, an attitude that respects, of course, the rights of others. They must understand that they must not put their hand where it can reach. They must understand that they cannot invade people's property and somehow arrogate it onto them because they have some warped philosophy that it belongs to them. And I am saying so against the background that is over 100 of these kinds of youths that followed Abu Bakr into, of course, the Red House and up at the TTT in order, of course, to disrupt and to overthrow in their efforts the sitting elected Prime Minister and therefore the government of Trinidad and Tobago in 1990. Those who refuse to learn from their past are doomed to repeat it, particularly where the past is riddled with mistakes. Especially when the past is riddled with mistakes, people. And that would have been uppermost in Rowley's mind when he was talking in 2019 about those youths, but failed to do anything about it in terms of serious development. And where does it start? It starts in the community. It starts in the family. It starts in the neighborhood, because of course the smallest unit in the society is the family. And the family is made up of what? Individuals. And individuals are offsprings of that original copulation, that marriage or that copulation or that sexual intercourse that produces the first and second and third and possibly fourth child, as the case may be. But the fact of the matter is that these are the people who you must find and get, and therefore the institution of family must be a focus. And then of course you have the other institutions of social control that you must take charge of. It must not be that you give them a couple $1,000, the churches and so on, and tell them, of course, throw a blind eye to what is happening in the society, without, of course, telling them that they have to go home and make, of course, a direct intervention, or the society or the families must know that you are there and you can go there as a church, as a religious and moral and ethical compass for the society and for the community in particular. And if that child is straying, then you must be able, of course, for the church and the school to come together and along with the conscientious family and make the impact as you gravitate to the teacher, or that child is made, of course, to talk with the leaders of the churches inside of the community, and of course put them on the moral and ethical path, not just of righteousness, but towards a decent and ultimate citizen. And that citizen is one that can contribute and one that is law-abiding, so that the development of the country can take the road and the path that it naturally ought to, because of the resources that we would have had, and of course the discipline imposed or inculcated, and the ideology that would have, of course, brought to fruition those practical exemplification in terms of human behavior and interaction. That is what we are talking about. That is the only way. It is a tough but possible, and of course it can be acquired, it can be a success path, but, and I'm saying so in the context that we have the enough physical resource to do it. The point is, you have the wrong managers at the helm of our affairs. Rowley and the PNM, they are total bastard. But let's see Kamala Prasad Bisesa, as she, of course, not only identify the problem, but of course generate some solutions as well.
This government is a narco government. Hard-working citizens.
Yes, indeed.
Up street in Canada, posed by the gang leaders. Home invasions, a horrible fact of life, with merciless thugs attacking law-abiding citizens who spent decades building their homes, their families, their communities, and the nation.
Look at that. A senior citizen, young man. You know what transpired with that particular incident? Well, let me tell you something. The young man that did that put his foot on that senior citizen who could be his grandmother, and from whom, a different womb, but certainly from a female, he would have come. They found him in one of the secondary schools in Barataria. One of the secondary schools in Barataria. And if, of course, that incident took place in East Port of Spain, on Charlotte Street, I understand. Then it means, therefore, he would have been living somewhere in Laventille and environs, East Port of Spain, etc. Or maybe Diego Martin, as the case may be. That's the furthest in terms of the west. And the furthest in terms of the east. He couldn't go further than maybe Mount Hope, because if he's going to school in Barataria, that tells you that he has to be living within that caption area. Yes, that that geographic space. Obviously, nobody from San Fernando will come to school in Barataria. Let's face it. So it's somewhere along the East-West corridor, that catchment area, that person would have. I don't have to know exactly where, but from the time I know that he's going to school in Barataria, your common sense will tell you, of course, Rowley, and they don't have that. So you'll find that will be a sort of Einstein formula for them that they cannot, of course, comprehend. Yes.
And this government refuses to enable law-abiding citizens to get legal firearms to defend themselves. Crime has created an undeclared civil war in once peaceful TNT. We are the world's most dreadful non-war killing zone. The only other place you're seeing that kind of killing zones, death fields as well, where there's open armed conflict war. Gaza and Israel, Putin and Ukraine and Russia and so on. Where there's open warfare, but we are killing fields. And as JJ says, the young ones are the ones who are the ones being wiped out. A whole lost generation. And I want to call on this government, I have this big fat book here. Probably wondering what this is. This was the Ryan report that my government commissioned.
Selwyn Ryan was commissioned to treat with that very matter across the socio-economic and, of course, cultural as well as religious, as well as, of course, the demographics. Even though, of course, one can identify that demographic group that are attending school, and therefore easy to identify because they are still in school, and therefore easy, of course, to evaluate for any researcher. But listen to Kamala Prasad-Bissessar as to what she did and what transpired with that particular document. Look how voluminous it is. Look how thick it is.
When we had problems with the crime, when I was Prime Minister, look at the size of this report. Many of the recommendations we have implemented already. But when they came in, they let go the wheel. They dumped the book. They threw it away in the dustbin. Today they need to pick it back up and look at the recommendations that we can share. So when you come to tell me about crime talk, something like, look, I will meet you anywhere, anytime, any place, any day, Rowley. Anywhere, and I'll even take over the pavement from Rudy to and meet you on the pavement as well.
East want to talk about party elites and meet them outside on the pavement. See these boots I'm wearing?
Coward, coward.
We, the farmers of Tobago and Texas, we call them shit kickers, right? And I'm hoping that I'll meet Dr. Munilal today, but I haven't met him so far.
We are not afraid of you. We have the plans, we have the policies, we have the programs, we have a track record. And we brought serious crimes down to the lowest in 30 years, man. So read and learn, listen and learn. And I don't understand why he's so reluctant to come out as a head of government, the head of the National Security Council, to discuss the most deadly thing happening in our country now, crime. Why you breaks in? Why you ducking and hiding? Why? Answer us that. And I wrote to you in good faith after I called for these anti-crime talks in April of this year.
Now, you realize that request was not original to the president. It's after the president, the PNM president, we saw, of course, exemplification of that propensity to be a PNM president. Of course, I got a piece of information today that I have to consider in terms of why it is that Deborah Felix was removed as president of the Industrial Court. Tonight I will examine it to of course, temper and to determine whether or not she had reached the legal limit of her office, or what is required of such a person in that office to hold it within a certain period. So I have to look at that. Somebody told me that today, so I want to confirm it first. But if it is that is because they were afraid that she would have made decision with respect to the NIB and of course the 4% that she is naturally, that is before her, and of course, whosoever panel that she has to work with, then that will be a horse of a different color. And it shows, of course, another despicable undermining of another institution by the Rowley administration. But I say no more. Let me find out first before, of course, I confirm or conclude what really transpired there.
He refused, you remember that? No way, no. And when the president made a call, and on that same day in Parliament, all of us were there after the sitting, and the media was interviewing, I said, sure, we are willing to meet. If we could save one life, if we could save one person from injury, we will meet. We will find the time and the space and the place, we will meet. And after we all said that, Rowley write me again now. He said, look, this is my team. Set at different conditions from what was previously agreed. First, he had told us, you name 4 and we will name 4. When you write me back now, after I sent all our recommendations, I don't know my pages, he said, oh God, the letter was too long, first of all. Like the fella can't focus for long now, so he found the letter was too long to read. This is where I had put in all our plans, our policy, some of them for him to see, and to come up with an agenda. And then he writes back home, letter too long. I heard him on the TV complain, letter too long. And then he says, listen, you all could send 4 persons. Good, we had agreed. But the government will send how many? 5. See,
I remember, of course, he had recommended 4, and suddenly he shifts the goalpost because he tells himself that he is prime minister, and therefore he can act dictatorially and, of course, menacingly. Let me repeat: menacingly autocratic, dogmatic. What he say goes. Hold your tail, Rowley. You are at the helm of a lame duck government. Don't call election early and continue with your nefarious ways. I bet you make more jail than if you had called election early. And of course, limit the amount of jail that you and your cabinet will be making.
Very lopsided thing. Lopside, flip side, whatever side you want to call it. Just upsided the apple card and the orange card too. Okay, fine. Then say, listen, we will have other stakeholders, but this committee with your 4 people and my 5 people will take a decision whom should be invited as a stakeholder. How is that now? So what you want to create another joint select committee of Parliament? And then he says only legislation. Well, fella, if you want that, let's go to Parliament. We'll battle you in the Parliament, we'll battle you outside the Parliament. But don't fool the country. Do not fool the country into thinking that the opposition is blocking this. We are willing and able. I say it again. We will meet with you. Why you send Limo to meet me? I don't want to meet him. This is a man lied in a court of law in Miami. This is a man who has so many failures. He's disqualified himself. I don't wish to speak to him. What you want me to put my members through that as well? So you send Limo, and he said some of the worst ministers on that committee, boy. The few fellows he sent from his team. I mean, what can they tell us? How can they help us? And on top of that, when we say we want a stakeholder to come. For example, I'd like to see Gary Griffith as a stakeholder.
Obviously.
Man has experience. He was my national security minister for a while. And then he was your commissioner of police. So what's wrong? But then, no, you change it up. You will have 5, I will have 4, and you'll say, no, we don't want Gary. We don't want you. We don't want you. We don't want you. At the end of the day, it's just going to be a talk shop. A PNM talk shop. We will get absolutely nothing done.
And the time has come where this Emancipation Day, not just to be a day for frivolity and wearing nice African clothes and walking in the street. The time has come for the Afro-Trinidadian population to use Emancipation Day, to focus and reflect and have serious conversations about where we are. The problem was that Trinidad and Tobago African problem. It wasn't happening in the Chinese community or the Indian community or the Arab community. It was a problem in the African community where the African youth, by the tens of thousands, were going astray and choosing violence and criminality as a way of life. The African youth, by the tens of thousands, were going astray and choosing violence and criminality as a way of life. The time has come for the Afro-Trinidadian population to use Emancipation Day, to focus and reflect and have serious conversations about where we are in a nation where we are underperforming. In a nation where we are underperforming.
I want to call on this government, I have this big fat book here, probably wondering what this is. This was the Ryan report that my government commissioned when we had problems with the crime, when I was Prime Minister. Look at the size of this report. Many of the recommendations we have implemented already. But when they came in, they let go the wheel, they dumped the book, they threw it away in the dustbin. Today they need to pick it back up and look at the recommendations that we can share. So when you come to tell me about crime talk, something like, look, I will meet you anywhere, anytime, any place, any day, Rowley. Anywhere, and I'll even take over the pavement from Rudy to and meet you on the pavement as well. We are not afraid of you. We have the plans, we have the policies, we have the programs, we have a track record.
Ladies and gentlemen,
the Prime Minister said in Trinidad and Tobago today, we need to confront a reality that we cannot run away from, which is, in a diverse society, African people are not doing well.
Some people are saying, is this a real place? Yes, it is a real place. And we have real problems. And it requires real solutions and real leadership.
Waste of time.
Or approach east, want to talk about party elites and meet them outside on the pavement. You see these boots I'm wearing?
Plain bad. Coward.
We the farmers of Tobago and Texas, we call them shit pickers, right? And I'm hoping that I'll meet Dr. Munilal today, but I haven't met him so far. You see these boots I'm wearing? We the farmers of Tobago and Texas, we call them shit pickers, right? And I'm hoping that I'll meet Dr. Munilal today, but I haven't met him so far. You call on the Prime Minister to do something about crime. I'm not in your bedroom, I'm not in your choice of men. You're losing the war against the criminal element, but you hold the government accountable, and the government must be held accountable. The country is awash in blood. There isn't a news item in this country where there isn't a good chance that a major part of the news is who killed who. We're taking the advice from you, the people. And when you have had enough of what we have done, you know exactly what to do.
We know.
You know what to do.
We know. This is what we will do. Yes, I.
The behavior in the national community is deteriorating and deteriorating rapidly because nothing useful is filling the vacuum. See these boots I'm wearing? We the farmers of Tobago and Texas, we call them shit pickers, right? And I'm hoping that I'll meet Dr. Munilal today, but I haven't met him so far. You see these boots I'm wearing? We the farmers of Tobago and Texas, we call them shit pickers, right? And I'm hoping that I'll meet Dr. Munilal today, but I haven't met him so far. The government must be held accountable.
You cannot be, you have to be bipolar. You have to be schizophrenic. You have to be despicably a hypocrite. Because you cannot be saying on the one hand that you're all moral and you are concerned about the crime and criminality, and then you're promoting violence. You tell women that you're not in the bedroom, and you can't tell them what man to take. In other words, victim blaming. And at the same time, you come now and you tell us that history has showed that those young men, because of the unraveling of the family and so on, all kinds of hogwash. This is about right and wrong, full stop. And there's a distinction between right and wrong. There is, of course, a contradiction when you talk about right and wrong, each one being the opposite of each other. And then you, Rowley, as Prime Minister, you go and use that office and talk about people coming on the pavement, and of course talking about shit kickers and all kind of nonsense, this rapists and pedophiles. You understand why you people who are intimidating or are interfering or are harassing the women on the live, that you are a girl, you are feminine or effeminine because your leader is a rapist and a pedophile. Your rapist, a blasted rapist and a pedophile, and therefore you have no moral authority just as him to, of course, talk about remedies and, of course, treating with issues of a moralist that requires a moralistic flavor, simply because he has no authority, none whatsoever, to pronounce or to act. And even though you throw endless money behind it, will never succeed, because he simply does not have the authority or moral and otherwise to, of course, treat with this matter. Let's go straight to the lines. Pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Lennox,
hey.
You want everybody, I didn't realize it was so late.
Yes.
I couldn't resist it.
Go ahead.
Kamala used his same special shoes on him. Kamala kicked his ass time and time again.
Yes.
Kick on the pavement, kick him all over. And I could now understand, Lennox, why we have these nasty PNM mites.
That's right.
The neck, the little Macomb man and them.
That's right. That's what you call them. Your leader is a rapist and a pedophile, and you talking about women and others. You have no moral authority to talk. Hold your tail.
Man in your bedroom, you are Prime Minister.
Yeah.
You are head of the National Security Council. And that is what you're telling people. He had the answers. He said it in town hall, city hall, they want to know.
Yeah.
He said it in Sandy Bradley. If you want to save your life, vote PNM. And now you're being quiet about it. You voted everything on Kamala's chest. Right? Guys, right? But kicking it. She kicked him in the north, the south, the east, and the west. And she kicking him with my door too.
And will be kicked.
I remember.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I thought you had finished. Go ahead.
I remember he went to a meeting with Clark, and before he became Prime Minister, and he was addressing the people, and one of the things he said is that you have to address some graduates from Tobago, most of which were young ladies, and he said them that from the schoolroom to the bedroom. You see how far his mind has traveled?
Yeah.
Right? The problem with these young men and them is that they the schoolroom to the bedroom. And again, I come back to the men on the chat, the nasty men and I tell on the chat, right? And you know what it is? He feel when he asks the ladies, we all get on them man from, quote unquote.
Yeah.
We all get on them man from. Because the men are functioning. The African men functioning. And we see it tonight. Why?
That's right. Yeah, woman, don't lift your head high and say, coming from these miscreants, these reprobates, you should feel proud to know that you can make valid contributions. And of course, you are the cradle of civilization and yes.
But all they can do is to come and sing to people.
Yeah.
Is that what they're giving them a juice box and a food card for? No, we know, see that we know identifying with their nasty behavior and Rowley nasty behavior. And when I am listed as hypocrite, a mocking pretender, that if you're playing from emancipation, Kid Rowley, you're a fraud.
Total.
Because the said one thing there, and the same something, doing something else. You should walk the talk, and stop pretending to be a Prime Minister. Lennox, thanks again, and have a good night.
Yes, indeed. And of course, I want to extend the walk talk that you talk. The walk talk that you talk. I say you should walk the plank. In ancient days, of course, in the piracy days, when you walk the plank, it means that you walk straight into the sea. And of course, in the context of Trinidad and Tobago, with a blasted chain and an engine block tied to your blasted neck. And that's it. The rest is left to your imagination. These fellas have no moral authority to even come on this program to, of course, criticize and to, of course, torment women. when their leader is a rapist and a pedophile, when of course he will not even respond to a pre-action protocol letter. In fullness of time, time will come. I am a very strategic individual. Wait, I'll make you wait, and at the worst possible time, like Murphy's Law, I'll whip you for 6. You wait. You wouldn't respond, eh? You wouldn't respond to a pre-action protocol letter. That is evidence. He wouldn't respond in the letter, of course. I'll read it again to let you know what I said. And I said in no uncertain terms, I called you a rapist and a pedophile. And of course, your lawyers and your agents are now, of course, saying that I'm a liar. Then, of course, I am taking you to court in order to, of course, prove that I lie. You know, in those circumstances, he has to say whether you rape or not. You know that? I ain't saying anymore. I don't want to give away too much. You wait. Revel in, and of course, believe somehow that you can rest back with a level of complacency. Well, I want to tell you, it will be a false impression that you would have had of the situation. Let's conclude by, of course, concluding this particular tape.
The government must be held accountable. The country is awash in blood. There isn't a news item in this country where there isn't a good chance that a major part of the news is who killed who. We're taking the advice from you, the people. And when you have had enough of what we have done, you know exactly what to do. You know what to do.
Your vote will decide.
That's right. We know what to do.
Destiny. Your vote will decide what you
That
want
is what we have to do.
Your vote can foretell our country's fate. Move and use it well before it's too late.
We're taking the advice from you, the people. And when you have had enough of what we have done, you know exactly what to do.
Yes, indeed, of course, we have come to the end of tonight's very dynamic, very, of course, flowing. I trust for those of you who didn't see it in full before, I trust that the change in decor, the change in, of course, set is appropriate and approving to you. Of course, you know, as we go closer to Christmas, we have to change because, of course, as you know, variety is the spice of life. You can say what you want. Of course, I am not encouraging promiscuity, because some people say that too is a variety. No. I'm talking about, of course, things like these, where, of course, you do not, of course, eat the same thing all the time. And I'm saying here, in terms of food, because I know people have warped minds and they will think something sexual as opposed to, of course, food. I'm talking about, you don't wear the same thing over and over. You do, of course, wear even the same face over and over. Sometimes, of course, you put some powder. Sometimes you take a little trim. Sometimes, of course, you put on a wig, etc., etc. Variety, the spice of life. And, of course, that makes it even richer and much more, of course, tolerable to sustain or to appreciate in spite of the circumstance. But in the case of Dr. Rowley, and the burden is too monumental, it's too monolithic, it is too arduous, it is too wicked for wicked sake, and has nothing to do with the lack of resources, but it has to do with the evil DNA that is in these people, believing that we must grovel, whilst they, of course, run away with ham, lamb, jam, the spoon, the plate, and even the dishes, and, of course, the spoons. Well, that has come to an end, and we know what to do. Yes, we know what to do, Rowley. We'll vote your tail out. Have a wonderful rest of the night. God bless. And, of course, I'll see you tomorrow morning on the ground report. But don't forget, tomorrow night is my night off. I think I have done my duty for the rest, the whole of this week, in, of course, addressing the question. Don't forget, of course, we have the why Rowley. We still have to discuss tomorrow morning on the ground report why Rowley went to St. Vincent. He was merely, of course, a spectator to that. And is it another case, of course, of chalking up frequent flyer, maybe for post Rowley, post PNM, post the Rowley administration, or So he believed, because of course we still have the criminal matters that he must face when he would have come out of office. And that could only come because you and I are the ultimate arbiters. We are the determiners as to whether they should stay there or go. And clearly what he has done to us, betrayal as it is, perfidious as it is, wicked as it is, diabolical as it is, evil as it is, we need to be able, of course, to treat with it. Of course, I was handed a little note asking to, of course, to extend happy birthday to of course, all of you who are having their birthday today. But of course, my son in the United States, happy birthday to you as well, of course. And of course, don't forget, there's many more. There's many more. I expect many more. And of course, to all the kids, etc., tell them that their grandfather has, of course, extended to their father a pleasant, happy birthday to you out there in the United States. That being as it may, and all, again, who are celebrating birthday today and this month, we want to wish you in advance all the best for those whose birthday has not yet come, and those that already has passed, of course, happy belated birthday as well, as we draw closer and closer to the end of 2023. And the first stop, of course, Christmas Day, the 24th? No, 25th of this month. All right, so that being as it may, have a wonderful rest of the night. God bless. Because we must finish with some taunting, with some taunting information before, of course, we go to the Christmassy session or period, because we cannot end the program without, of course, making you realize the reality of Trinidad and Tobago today, and the fact that we have a despicable bunch of individuals whose intent is to politically destroy Trinidad and Tobago. Politically here meaning that they would use the offices that they hold in order, of course, to abuse and to pretend that they have some kind of devilish right to manage the affairs of the country, when in fact it is pure and unadulterated grandstanding, incompetence, impotence, and an inability, of course, to manage the affairs of the country. Led by who? A man called Rowley. Of course, some people say Rowley. Let's see. Yes, indeed. And therefore, we must tell him where to get off. Yes, indeed.
If you see this woman, she definitely done, but the hard work she do, everything for she son. Calling Piper Stephen and doing what they want, forcing Rowley mother to take an account. All the pepper on the tree, all the bygone and the body, the plantain, the cucumber, the pumpkin, the zapoka, even all the okra that they're in every month. Rowley mother, Rowley mother, Rowley mother, come. Tell Rowley she don't know what to do, but what she really didn't know, he was Stephen too. The boy had been thieving since he was very small, involved in corruption and all kind of bubble. So Rowley mother decided to do some checking, but anytime she checked, things still missing. Sweet potato and cassava, broccoli and cauliflower, the papaya and the mango, even all the passion fruit that they're in every month. Rowley mother, Rowley mother, Rowley mother, come. juice. Grapefruit, lime, and orange for you to make your juice. A hard-working woman, working day and night, but them shaman solely thieving. As she out she liked, so she went up in Tobago, up in Lake Edo, for Obia to see who thieving hototo. The lettuce and tomato, the cabbage and pimento, the celery and bhaji, the saiva and the karai. Even all the pumps he did that there in every month. Rowley mother, Rowley mother, Rowley mother count.
mother reindeer. Right now we planning to get down in a soca party to see them nice woman shake up their boom see. Oh, oh, Santa looking for